Hi everyone, my name is Kiara and I'm going to be talking about our final project, which is exploring the online disinhibition effect, or ODE, and how it shows up emotionally for young adults on social media. Basically, we're asking, what does it feel like when someone says something online that they wouldn't usually say face to face? The core idea comes from Suler, 2004, who introduced ODE. He explained that features of online spaces like anonymity and invisibility make people freer to express themselves. Sometimes it's a good thing, like opening up emotionally, which he called benign disinhibition, but sometimes it leads to aggressive or hostile behavior known as toxic disinhibition. Building on that, Corkum in all 2023 found that emotional regulation is a key factor. People who struggle to manage their emotions are more likely to lash out online, especially when provoked. So it's not just the platform, it's also the person's emotional state. Marilyn and Raoul Salayan 2024 added another layer, platform norms. In some online spaces, especially forums or gaming, toxic behavior gets normalized. So even when something feels emotionally upsetting, people might brush it off as just that's just how it is online. And finally, Ibarra in all 2024 showed that social anxiety and feeling protected online also plays a big role. When people feel safer online, thanks to anonymity or control over their image, they're more likely to say things that they hold back in real life. For socially anxious young adults, that can be a huge emotional release. So, across this research, we see that disinhibited behavior online is shaped by personal traits, emotional skills, and culture of the platform. Our study focuses on how young adults describe the emotional impact of these online interactions, what it feels like to cross a boundary or have one crossed in a digital space. And that wraps up our literature review. Thank you.
Hello everyone, Andrew speaking here. For this study, our group chose a hermeneutical phenomenological approach to explore how young adults experience online interactions, specifically moments when people say or do things online that they normally wouldn't in real life. We were especially interested in how these interactions emotionally affect individuals. Inspired by Van Manen's work, this method focuses on uncovering the meaning behind people's lived experiences. It was the most fitting approach for our topic because it centers digital communication in a ways it can evoke behaviors that differ from face-to-face interactions. Our focus wasn't just on whether someone said something rude or emotionally charged online, but, but on how those moments felt, what they meant to the person at the time, and how they've interpreted them since. We wanted to deeply understand how individuals process both their own behavior and the behavior of others in online settings. For the justification for the method, we chose this method because of the complexity of our topic. Online disinhibition is a layered concept. It's not only about what people say, but why they say it, and how it can impact other in their own emotions, relationships, and self-perception. Since we were interested in the psychological and emotional side of digital interactions, we needed a method that prioritizes memory, reflection, and emotional honesty. This creates a space for participants to reflect without being boxed into surface level responses. This was important because people often have mixed or unresolved feelings about their online experiences. For example, someone might feel both shame and relief after posting something aggressive online, and that kind of emotional nuance is difficult to capture through surveys. We wanted our participants to feel safe, understood, and unjudged. Our interviews were never about condemning behavior, but about understanding the mindset behind it. For the description of the instrument, we used a semi-structured interview format with open-ended questions to guide conversation. Our questions encourage participants to reflect on both sides of digital exhibition. Whether they said something bold online or received a message that deeply affected them, each interview lasted around 15 to 30 minutes and was conducted either in person or Zoom. While we followed a core set of 7 questions, we allowed room for follow-ups to keep the conversation natural and participant-led. Interviews were recorded, transcribed, and kept confidential to protect participants' and identities. Ultimately, this method helped us explore how people make sense of emotionally charged online moments, especially those that wouldn't happen offline. Hermeneutical phenomenology allowed us to listen deeply to participants' personal stories and gain insight into how digital disinhibition connects to identity, emotion, and personal growth. These reflections offered a richer understanding of how digital spaces shape the way we communicate, feel, and connect with others.
Hi everyone, today I'm going to share our first two findings that are from our interviews. Our first finding focuses on why people first finding was that people felt freer to express themselves online in ways they wouldn't do in person. Across our interviews, participants described how the anonymity of the online platforms and the absence of immediate human reactions made it easier to post bold or even hurtful comments. For example, one participant got in a heated sports debate online using sarcastic, cutting remarks he admitted he wouldn't say to face-to-face. Another participant described leaving a harsh review of a company, acknowledging she would never say the same words directly to someone. A major factor behind this behavior is emotional distance of online spaces. In face-to-face conversations, we want to see others' facial expressions and hear their tone of voice, which makes us more aware of this emotional consequence of our words. Online, that feedback is gone, and so is a sense of accountability. Participants also noted that the anonymity allows people to hide behind their screens, avoiding any real-time consequences for the comments. Together, this makes the online environments places where individuals feel emboldened to say things they would never normally hold back. Our second finding reveals the emotional impact from receiving such comments. Every participant recalled at least one negative comment they experienced that stayed with them, whether it was a mean-spirited jab in a Discord gaming group chat that made one participant feel self-conscious, or a sarcastic comment about someone's weight on Instagram that left her embarrassed. Even our youngest participant, like a 15-year-old who summed up by saying it sucked and felt the sting of the comment. Interesting though, participants tried to dismiss this hurtful phrases for phrases, it's just the internet, it's just a joke, or it's rage bait. This reflects sorry I'm going to mess with these names, but Maragine and Razasalan, a 2024 qualitative study, found repeated exposures to hostile communication often leads users to accept it as part of the culture of a platform. So as we see repeated exposures of these hurtful comments feel normal. Over time, people can become more desensitized, like I kind of said, to negativity, even though the emotional impact remains very real. And that was a very key finding. Together, these findings highlight a cycle. People feel freer to send hurtful messages online because they cannot see the immediate consequence. But for those on the receiving end, the effects are lasting. And as the behavior becomes more normalized, online spaces become more hostile, reinforcing the cycle. Thank you.
It's Joe, and I'll be sharing a couple key findings from our qualitative study on how young people experience and engage in digital communication online and on social media. And our project explored the emotional, psychological, and behavioral impact on these platforms based on lived experiences. So finding number 3 was no surprise. It was the curated identity and filtered persona. So one of the strongest themes that actually came up out of this study was the idea of a curated identity. So most people recognize that people only share an idealized version of themselves, posting only highlights and using filters, and sometimes even adopting an entirely different persona online. And one person described how girls often use post thirst traps and how guys respond differently online than real life. They also talked about how people overshare things and they probably wouldn't share those things face to face. This theme connects closely with Searler's concept of online distribution effects, where factors like invisibility or lack of immediate feedback reduce social restraints. And so people feel emboldened and act differently online. This also ties in with Marilanin's and Rotisselin's work, which found that platform norms greatly exaggerate behaviors and weaken traditional social cues. So these mismatches between online and offline behavior often caused an awkwardness in real life or mistrust, especially when people's online behavior didn't line up with real life. So evolving self-awareness and a digital caution was our fourth finding. And this was just kind of natural for people that early on they described feeling like a freer, more uninhibited self online, and then over time they became more cautious. One person described after posting a trending video online and getting mocked in the comments that he didn't want to participate in that kind of posting again. Another talked about how he posted a video about with his mom in it, and he cited privacy concerns over why he took that down pretty much immediately. So these examples reflect a growing awareness toward the permanence of online and how digital content can be misinterpreted and misused. This ties in with Ibarra et al.'s research, who found that many young users modify their behavior due to concerns about surveillance and reputational harm. Participants also talked about becoming more careful with their words online, worrying about how things could stick or be used against them in the future. So this speaks to the toxic versus benign disinhibition that Suler describes, where people initially feel free but later reevaluate their choices as potential risk. Ultimately, this theme shows how digital behavior evolves, and with experience, young people and young users learn to set boundaries, becoming more intentional and guarded in how they communicate online.
Hello everyone, I'll be summarizing my research on how the online distinction effect impact the way we communicate in digital spaces and what that means for our behavior both online and offline. So for a group study overview and key finding, in this study I explore how people feel and act differently online compared to face-to-face communication. Across participants of different ages and backgrounds, a clear theme emerged. Online people tend to make people feel freer, bolder, and sometimes more reckless. Why? Because of things like animosity, emotional distance, and the lack of immediate social consequences. The factor creates a buffer that allows people to say things like sarcastic comments or emotional ends they might never say in person. Some participants share that they post implicit justify it with phrases like "it was just a joke, internet thing," but many admit later to regret deleting comments once they realize the potential harm or how they might be perceived. What is especially interesting in that online distinction wasn't just negative. Some participants described feeling more confident or vulnerable online in a way that actually helped their real life communication. So while the internet can lower empathy and accountability, it can also support the self-creation and personal growth if used respectively. That said, the study has some limitation. The sample was unfairly homogeneous, which limit how much we can generalize these findings to broader population. Also, because this was based on self-report interview, there's a chance of memory bias and people wanting to present themselves more positively and rarely acted. So for the future research, it will be valuable to explore how these behavior are vary by platform like Instagram, with Reddit, with TikTok. Cross-culture studies could also help us understand how different societies view distinction online. It would also be great to see individual studies that track how someone online behavior change over time, especially with shifting norms and evolving tech. Finally, including more diversity in participation by age, gender, and digital literacy could really deepen our understanding how online distinction play out across different groups. So the closing will be thanks for watching, and remember, behind every screen there's a real person. Thank you.